You're listening to the Quint podcast.
A consignment of 740 tons of ammonium nitrate that has been lying in a Chennai customs warehouse for around 5 years is raising some red flags just days after Beirut's catastrophic blast. On 4th August, an estimated 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate that had been stored reportedly for over 6 years in a port warehouse in Beirut without the proper safety protocols rocked Lebanon's capital, leading to the tragic loss of over 100 lives and injured over 5,000 people, not including those who are feared to be still buried under the rubble. Video footage from the scene of the explosion show a thick cloud of smoke as the blast obliterated the warehouse where the chemical was stored, destroyed entire districts in the capital and flattened buildings, leaving a crater approximately 140 meters wide. And that's what's raising the alarms about the ammonium nitrate stockpile near Chennai, a city home to around 70 lakh people. In a tweet on 6th August, PMK leader S. Ramadas said, and I'm quoting his tweet here, quote, "There's a risk of a similar explosion due to ammonium nitrate in the Chennai warehouse. To prevent this, the ammonium nitrate should be safely disposed of and used for other purposes such as composting." End quote. But what can cause ammonium nitrate explosions, and are there any reasons to be alarmed in Chennai? You're tuned in to The Big Story, the podcast where we dissect the headline making news for you. And I'm your host, Shorburi. Firstly, ammonium nitrate does not burn on its own. It's widely used as an agricultural fertilizer but can also be used to manufacture explosives, and that's why storing it could be a fire hazard because it's so highly explosive when it comes into contact with flames. Raman Vaidyanathan, the CEO of Syntech, a chemical company, explains what all conditions can lead to an ammonium nitrate explosion.
If you could explain.
Basically, ammonium nitrate actually on its own it does not explode. Due to only thing is due to friction or impact found in normal handling, nothing will happen. But only thing is it can be detonated under heat or confinement in a severe shock or anything like that only. It can explode. Otherwise, as it is by handling, it will not happen. Nothing will happen to it. On its own, it does not get ignited also. But if it comes in contact with fire or it gets contaminated, like get mixed up with urea or copper or any other metal things, it can be a problem. So, or it gets caught into drains, pipes or machinery. Suppose it gets jammed into it, it could be exploding. That is the only thing which will happen. So,
and over the world, there have been many reports of this substance causing explosions. Before Beirut, if you remember, there have been a series of explosions in the Tianjin port in China in 2015 that killed over 150 people. Before that, in Queensland, Australia. And before that, at least 2 reported blasts from the US in 2009 and in 2013. And the list goes on. Now, what happened in Beirut was that in 2013, a Russian-owned vessel, the Rosas, which was heading towards Mozambique, had to dock at Beirut due to technical problems. And its cargo included ammonium nitrate. But soon enough, the crew got stuck in a legal battle and the ship never left the port. In 2014, the crew was allowed to leave the ship and the port authorities transferred the ammonium nitrate into a warehouse where it was quote-unquote awaiting auctioning or proper disposal. Although the exact cause of the explosion is not known yet, a fire seems to have triggered it. We've heard from Mr. Vaidyanathan about how heat or confinement can lead to such an explosion. Now let's hear from Professor T. Pradeep, who teaches in the chemistry department of IIT Madras, about what chemical reactions triggers the ammonium nitrate and otherwise non-explosive substance to combust.
So let us say if you have an explosive, what does explosive mean? It is an explosive means that there is a fast chemical reaction releasing some gases.
Yes.
So if you release some gas, most often these gases are carbon dioxide. When something is burned, like diesel is burned, you produce carbon dioxide.
Yes.
And it is a gas, and therefore if you contain that in a small area, in a small volume, it increases pressure inside, and finally it If the container cannot hold that pressure, it will explode. Yeah. So you need to supply other things, and I'm sure that there are many things that are probably around in this particular, in this particular explosion, not necessarily ammonium nitrate alone. So in this particular case of ammonium nitrate, there are two specific chemical reactions of relevance. One is a chemical reaction which releases some gas called nitrous oxide. And that temperature is fairly low. I mean, around 300 degrees, it releases nitrous oxide. A slightly higher temperature, it releases oxygen, nitrogen and oxygen and some water. So this is called the thermal decomposition reaction. So what happens is that if there is a material that is kept in a confinement and there is some source of heat for that, there is a possibility that it can result in either of these reactions, either nitrous oxide release or oxygen release.
Okay.
So now what happens is that, so this is why you heat some material, explosive, for example, you heat it. You get it to a heating point or a point at which it can cause combustion in that. The temperature is often higher than the temperature required for oxygen release by ammonium nitrate. So spontaneously, a lot of oxygen comes out and that results in this reaction.
Now, coming to Chennai, what has rung the alarm bells in the state is that 740 tons of this substance has been sitting at a container freight station in Ponneri High Road, Manali, which is around 20 kilometers away from Chennai, after it was seized by authorities from a Karur-based company called Sri Aman Chemicals 5 years ago. According to the Indian Express, the company had in September 2015 filed for customs clearance for the import, but again, they too got stuck in a legal battle. Since it came under the spotlight, politicians and citizens have voiced their concerns about whether or not it was safe to have the substance so close to Chennai. And to allay their fears, the Customs Department issued a statement on 6th August saying that the chemical substance was safely stored away and there were no residential colonies within a 2-kilometer radius. But an inspection by the Tamil Nadu Pollution Control Board, or the TNPCB, on the same day contradicted those very claims. Manali New Town, which is just 700 meters away, has a population of about 7,000, and the southern Kuppam village, which is 1,500 meters away, has a population of over 5,000. And that could be a problem because in Beirut we saw that the impact of the blast was felt as far as 240 kilometers away. So should we be concerned about Chennai after what happened in Beirut? Well, before that, the authorities would need to look into how the substance is being stored in Chennai and in what quantities is it being stored. Given the hazardous nature of this substance, there's an exhaustive list of rules and regulations under the Explosives Act of 1884 on how to store it and transport it safely. And one of the first things to check on would be how much nitrogen content does it have. Mr. Vaidyanathan explains why.
So ammonium nitrate, basically, there are two qualities it comes, less than 28% nitrogen content or about 28%. If it is less than 28% less nitrogen percent, it is supposed to be less problem. So generally, you don't have much of an issue. You don't have to worry much. But if it has more than 28% nitrogen concentration, it's definitely warranted more procedures of storage, handling, and so on. That's one thing, like what is in Chennai, we have to find out whether it is less than 28 nitrogen percent or about 28% nitrogen content. So there are guidelines, fertilizer regulations available for handling nitrogen, which is with ammonium nitrate with more than 28% nitrogen especially.
Authorities would also need to ensure that there's no increase in local temperatures that could potentially trigger a blast. Listen to what Professor Pradeep has to say.
So, in general, an explosive material should not be stored near, when there is a highly populous area nearby.
Yes.
And when there is let's say, an airport or something, it is certainly not an advisable thing to store a huge quantity of anything that can cause combustion. But at the same time, you know that in airports also we store a lot of fuel. So, in Chennai or any such area, if it is confined, if there is a possibility of any local increase in temperature. That local increase in temperature can even be a cigarette.
Oh,
because the temperature can go above the temperature, right, required for this reaction. So what happens is that if there is a contained material, a lot of material is confined in a region that has to be protected. But if there is lacks of this appropriate protection, there is a possibility that explosions can happen. This is what happens in all fire hazards, right?
And most importantly, they'd need to look at what kind of storage is it being kept in. And back to Mr. Vaidyanathan here, who explains what is an ideal storage facility for this material.
So the storage, especially ammonium nitrate, should be normally stored in a single storage building, dedicated, well-ventilated building. It cannot be totally closed, kind of confined space. That's very important. It should be constructed with materials which will not burn, like concrete, brick, steel. That's very, very important. It should not be a wooden kind of structure. That is important. But however, if the storage is located in a densely populated area, it is better to store in a open yard or somewhere like that, and protected for rain and sunlight. That's important, because if it is near dense area, this is not good to put it in a storage place like that also. That is one thing we have to see.
So are the customs officials taking swift action to shift out the substance? Well, while they denied any delay in disposal of the material, they said that an e-auction has already been completed and the cargo would be transported out following safety measures. In the meantime, the TNPCB has recommended the District Industrial Safety and Health Department to safeguard the area till the clearance of the chemical substance. If you like listening to this episode, please subscribe to the Big Story playlist for episodic updates. We're live on Apple, Google Podcast, Spotify, JioSaavn, and most of the other popular podcast streaming platforms. For other podcasts, please log on to the Quint website and check out the podcast section. For any feedback, shoot an email to podcasts@thequint.com.
Thanks for listening. Log on to the Quint's website and check out our other podcasts.